Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to BrisScience for July 2015. Fantastic to see you all here tonight, and a special welcome to our special guests from the Winter School, which I'll explain more in a moment. If this is your first BrisScience, a particularly warm welcome. A couple of little bits of housekeeping, just so that you know how this all works. We're going to have a presentation first, followed by some opportunities for question and answers, and then we have some drinks and nibblies outside, and you'll have the opportunity to have a chat to our speaker as well if you've got any more questions that we don't get through in the time we have. If you need the bathroom, just head down the stairs straight outside the door, and in the event of any sort of emergency, just follow the direction of the staff and the exit signs. You might have noticed on your seat you have a question sheet. This is how we handle questions here at BrisScience. So what that means is throughout the talk, if you write down if you come up with any questions you'd like to know the answers to, write them down on this sheet, and at the end of the talk we will come round, wave them in the air, we'll collect those, and we will get through as many of those as we can before our time runs out. We also accept questions over Twitter. Do you like that timing there? So if you have a phone, which is of course set to silent now, yes? The movement, everyone goes to silent, fantastic. Then please hop on Twitter, hashtag BrisScience, and we'll have a bit of a discussion there as well. Happy to take that on board. All right, I think that is all of the housekeeping for now. So it's my very great pleasure to welcome to BrisScience this evening a special guest, Professor Arun Ram, from the University of Melbourne, where he's a Professor of Mathematics. Arun is here in Brisbane this week for the Australian Mathematical Sciences Institute's annual Winter School, which brings together 40 of the top postgraduate researchers from Australia who are, and I quote, fantastically brilliant. Got to hand it to the marketing team. This week's theme is algebra, geometry, and physics. Arun was here today lecturing on that topic. However, if you've been looking at the stage tonight, as I have, you'll see that this is not going to be an ordinary mathematics lecture. So I'm going to let the talk do the talking, and could you please join me in welcoming to the stage Professor Arun Ram.
It was an early Friday morning. Of course, the most important thing on an early Friday morning, it was going to be a busy day, is coffee. that morning I was preparing, I had to teach, of course, first thing in the morning, and then there was an office hour, but what was really on my mind was the meeting of the Strategic Planning Committee for the Faculty of Science. I really need to be on top of my game for that meeting. And so there was a lot of preparation to do. Of course, I wanted to do some recording of the marks for the assignments so that I could hand those back. And there was a visitor in town that day who was giving a seminar in the afternoon, a research seminar. So, of course, I would go to lunch with the visitor, and I would have some discussions with them before the talk, after the talk, and had a meeting with a graduate student in there. So anyway, it was a very full day, and I had to concentrate and get things. But once the coffee was on, things are already better. And, of course, you can't resist looking at your email to see what's come in during the night. Please submit your paper to the Chinese. Oh, we'll trash that one. Dear Professor Ram, we are considering the promotion of Terry Gannon to, would I please write a review of his work? Oh, Yeah, maybe, but I can't think about that today. Oh, here's an interesting, a little more interesting. I got to send an abstract. This one is from Phil Isaac, who's the academic organizer for the Australian Math Sciences Institute Winter School up in Brisbane. And Phil Isaac had asked me to give a couple of talks there, one for the students and another public lecture. I had agreed to do that, but now he wants blurbs for the talks. I'm going to have to think about it, but tomorrow, we'll do that tomorrow. It's too busy today. Oh yeah, there's just too much email. Anyway, coffee is more or less ready. Let's get that coffee, because once the coffee is going, then we can actually work, Of course, at that point, the phone rang. Hello, Maria. Yes, I knew it was you, of course. Who else would call me at 4:30 in the morning on a Friday? Yeah. You must have a show tonight. You never can sleep before a show. It's amazing how nervous you get. You sung in every major opera house in the world, and still you can't sleep the night before a show. But at least you got a good routine. Yeah, I'm assuming you're cooking this morning. Yeah, I know, you can't eat afternoon on a day of a show. Makes your stomach too queasy. But what are you cooking? You always cook wonderful on the... Oh, that sounds great. Oh, simple is best. Pomodoro, grilled asparagus spears with prosciutto. And what for dessert? For dessert? Oh, lemon tart. Oh, it sounds wonderful. Yeah, I know, you cook, big meal, clean up. Afterwards, eat peacefully, and then that relaxes you for the show. No, I can't come. I've got a really busy day. I've got to teach, I've got a visitor, it's just completely packed. And then there's emails rolling in, there's so many letters to write. I've got to send blurbs for some talks I'm giving in Brisbane. Yeah, I agreed to give 2 talks up there, one for the kids and a public lecture. I don't usually give public lectures. What do you mean it'll be easy? You're the one who talks in front of big audiences. I never talk in front of big audiences. My research? No, I'm just going to talk about my research. I can't talk about my research. No, it's in a language. When we do it, it's in a language. It's not right for the public. It's like when you go to the doctor's office. He says, well, your chlorhexidine levels are at 2.5, so we're going to do a check on your polysublingual gland. And if that's elevated, then... And you look at the doctor and you just, well, that's sort of what it's like trying to talk mathematics. You have to convert all the language that you do it in to the normal language, and that's a lot of work. I don't know. Alexander's research, that's even worse. Vector bundles, sheaves, perverse sheaves. Well, I can't. Well, I don't know. Yeah, I heard from Alexander, actually. Yeah, he called at 2 o'clock this morning. 2 o'clock? No, of course I was sleeping. I get up early, but at 2 o'clock I'm sleeping. No, he let it ring and ring and ring and ring and ring. And then, no, he didn't apologize. He just took off on his diatribe. You know how Alexander is. No, I don't know. Something about how all the governments are run by imbeciles and the media is just feeding the public with propaganda and that we should all organize and take over the world. I don't know, the communist. The usual thing that Alexander is all on about. I don't know. He was working late on mathematics, and then he must have looked at the internet before he went to bed and saw something that Tony Abbott said, and that sent him through the roof, And when he goes through the roof, then he calls me. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I don't know. I wasn't listening, I was too sleepy. He got it out of his system and calmed down a bit, yeah. Actually, we decided with Alexander to go to the toy store tomorrow. Yeah, Mariana and her uncle Alexander and me, why don't you come? Oh, I know. Mariana loves her Tia Maria. It'd be wonderful if you came. Yeah. Oh, it would be great. Yeah, let's do it. We'll meet after lunch, say 1:30. Oh, that's very sweet. You could take us all for ice cream at Brunetti's? That's Mariana's favorite thing in the whole world, her ice cream at Brunetti. You're a wonderful tia for her. Yes, it's wonderful. Great. We'll see you tomorrow. That'll be great. And have a good meal. And in bocca al lupo for tonight. Ciao. Ciao. That's great. Good. Whew. That's an intense pair, Maria and Alexander. In order to give you a feel for who these people are, Maria, Alexander Grothendieck, Maria Callas, I have to go back to the beginnings of classical music, modern classical music, and modern mathematics. It was a different time. This is the beginning of the 1700s. This is Bach and Euler. And it was a time when the days just went by in their cyclic revolution, and the months, and you just did your thing day by day. It must have been in the air, because Euler discovered this fantastic formula describing the perfect symmetry of a circle. And the number pi is the ratio between the circumference of the circle and the diameter, and he found exactly the periodicity of the exponent with pi to give exactly the true emotion of the circle. And yet at the same time, Bach was writing the same kind of cyclic perpetual motion. Listen. It's almost miraculous how the two worlds, the world of music and the world of mathematics, were producing the same kind of symmetry, the same kind of formulas. This formula, e to the I pi equals -1, if you're a mathematician and you see that, it brings so much the same emotion that the Bach brings to you. Of course, by the turn of the century, actually, let's move forward to the turn of the 20th century. And this is the time of Poincaré and Mahler. And it was a real time of everything was changing. There were new things that you couldn't even possibly imagine before. Poincaré was imagining universes and creating manifolds and building spheres and putting them together and studying how do the spheres relate. It was just a completely new kind of mathematics mixed with physics, mixed with astronomy, mixed with the universe that no one had ever dared to contemplate before. And there was some sort of great excitement of the new century. Listen. Waiting for what was going to happen in mathematics and music in the 20th century. It was really a time of change. The Industrial Revolution was bringing everything was done in a new way. In music, you really noticed the effect of the teachers of the time. And also in mathematics, it really changed the way that we physically do mathematics. We moved out of the old way and into the new industrialized way. I find as a violinist, it's so striking to listen to the old violinists before Auer. Auer was a great teacher of the time of the 1920s. Gelfand was a great teacher for mathematics, and he changed the way that we physically do the mathematics today. And you can hear in the violin, you can hear that sound, that before hour sound versus the after hour sound. Where the violin, after hour, the violin is somehow real. It's not a distant thing. You hear the violin. Listen. Fingers on the string. smear of that finger going. Before our, you never heard that kind of stuff. And it's the same in mathematics. After Gelfand, we do mathematics. We really physically do it. You can really feel the way that mathematics grows. All right, let's move then to the next stage. Of course, that first half of the 20th century was punctuated by terrible wars. There was destruction, and there was horror, and there were feelings that we never felt could possibly. There were feelings of repression that you never. In André Wei's Weil conjectures, these are really important conjectures which have really changed the face of mathematics and geometry. You can feel the rigidity. He discovered the main elements of these conjectures when he was in prison. And you can feel that forcefulness of the technology and the uncontrollable war and the chaos and the tumult which was in the time. And it's as vivid in the mathematics, if you know about the Weil conjecture, as it is in the music. Listen. That's the Weil conjectures. If you look at those conjectures, you feel that. You can feel that power of the time. And it just seemed like you didn't know whether the world was ending or whether it was chaos or whether we were destined for war after war after war and destruction and so on. And then there came the figures of Maria Callas and Alexander Grothendieck. And they brought to us a new vision, a new clarity, a new perspective, looking out over the great mountain ranges of where all of this war was going on, into the very dominions of the heavens. You listen to Maria Callas, and you know exactly what I mean. Listen. And that was what Grothendieck brought to mathematics. At that time, it was a way of looking that we couldn't have even imagined before. It was a way of thinking that had such clarity, such beauty of expanse of abstract structures. He built these incredible highways through the mountains to show us all of those beautiful things that were along the way. This first formula that I have up here is the Grothendieck-Riemann-Roch formula. The Grothendieck trace formula. This first one here. We see it down here even. And this Grothendieck trace formula is about the Frobenius fixed points. The Frobenius fixed point is like that thing, that holy grail, that thing that you're searching for in the midst of all this chaos and storm and in the midst of all of this struggle that we're going through. And you can't get to it. You can't construct it. You can't build it in the physical way we want to build in mathematics. It's inaccessible. And then Grothendieck comes with this formula, which is just like radar. You can't actually touch the Frobenius fixed point, but you can sense it. You can sense it with an amazing tool. This is called L-adic cohomology. And you can actually count all of those Frobenius fixed points just by looking at them on the radar screen. It's a fantastic, it just changed the way that we think about the whole game. And this the second formula, I've chosen a special excerpt. This second formula is called the Grothendieck-Riemann-Roch formula, this one. And this is an expression of commutativity. It's a commutativity of a certain diagram. So commutativity means that if you do one thing and then another thing, that's the same as doing the other thing and then the one thing. It never happens. I mean, think about it. If you cover yourself with mud and then take a shower, it's a very different effect than taking a shower and then covering yourself with mud, right? It just doesn't happen in life. You know, you don't have commutativity. But in the Grothendieck-Riemann-Roch formula, everything is perfect. It's a perfect harmony and perfect emotion which comes from Grothendieck. In that formula, it captures exactly the perfectness and the harmony of everything. Listen to the sound of the Grothendieck-Riemann-Roch formula. And that formula is the same. The words of the aria are vici d'arte, vici d'amore. It says, I lived art, I lived love. And that formula captures that somehow. It captures exactly that sentiment. You pick it up. Of course, Maria Callas and Alexander Grothendieck in real life, they were very complicated people. As personalities, they were very complicated person. I mean, that evening, Maria Callas was performing Norma. Norma is a bel canto opera, a really great opera, in which she plays the high priestess of the Druids. And the high priestess of the Druids is responsible for her people, for leading them through in peace and in harmony to the next generation and to the next generation. But this high priestess has betrayed everything within herself. She has had an affair with a man she loves, and she's had children with a man she loves. But this man is the general of the conquering armies. And they have kept this secret, because her people will not let it happen. She is high priestess of the Druids. They go to her for advice. They go to her for culture. They go for her for education of their children. So she has kept it all secret. And she lives for 4 hours of that opera with this betrayal hidden in herself. She has betrayed herself. She has betrayed her parents. She has betrayed her people. She has betrayed all of the students, all of the young priestesses in front of her. And when you do that, 3 nights a week, and Maria Callas really became Norma on stage. If you ever see a video, it's really incredible. This woman became that character. She was high priestess of the Druids for 4 hours, 3 nights a week. And then you go to real life, and you're a weird person, okay? That's what happens. And it was the same for Grothendieck. You see, even in this is a little blurb for a talk that he gave, and it's a talk about the Grothendieck-Riemann-Roch formula. It's a talk about the perfect harmony of that go to the right, go down is the same as going down, go to the right. And he says it's commutative with an exclamation point. And at the end of this, he writes a gripping example of how our thirst for knowledge indulges itself more and more, while life itself is going to hell in 1,000 ways and is under threat of final extinction. This is Grothendieck. This is a quote. And this is what this man was like. Anyway, Maria Callas, Alexander Grothendieck, and my daughter and I, we were going to the toy store the next day. And it was a beautiful Saturday afternoon. It was one of those Saturday afternoons, you know, when the sun is shining on Lygon Street and there are fashion shoppers and there are coffee goers. If you've ever been to Lygon Street in Melbourne, it's just wonderful. All those beautiful Italian men and women dressed to the hilt and having their coffee. And we were so happy to be together, you know, good friends and good good with the child and with Tia Maria and with Uncle Ellie. Everybody had a smile on her face. Of course, we were just going to cross the road, and my daughter noticed out in front of us a man walking down the street. And she runs to go, he was carrying a whole bunch of books, and she gave him a big hug, and the books, he was just trying to hold on. This was Hermann Hesse. He was coming out of readings. He says, "Oh, it's so good to see you. I was just coming from readings. They released my new book. My new book is just released. It's so nice and wonderful to see you here. Your new book. Oh, what is it about? What is it?" "Well, it's just a small thing, really. It was some thought about mathematics and music and science and the way that the emotion of and the progress of humanity. I put it in a book, And it takes place up in the mountains, in the beautiful mountains. And there's an elite school. And there they practice the art of the glass bead game. The glass bead game is the confluence of all the sciences and all the arts all into one. And the great glass bead game players, they know all of music, they know philosophy, they know emotion, they know social, they know everything. And it goes all into these great minds. And they teach the students there in Castalia. Castalia is a place in the beautiful mountains. And underneath Castalia, there are 3 great mountains. These 3 mountains, these are the pre-projective variety, the quiver variety, and the loop Grassmannian. And the nutrients come down from the mountains. They come down to Castalia, and they feed the scientists. They feed the thought process. They are the muses for these great scientists downstairs. And the 3 mountains, they have their own character, The one mountain, the pre-projective variety, the character takes you to this semi-canonical basis. And the character of the middle mountain, this is the quiver variety, it takes you down to the canonical basis. And then the other one is the loop Grassmannian, is Mogul Mountain. You go skiing on the Mogul Mountain. And your Mogul Mountain, the character of it is the MV basis. And these 3 bases, they are very subtle. Only the greatest glass bead game players can understand these bases, the semi-canonical basis, the canonical basis, and the MV basis. But very beautiful, because the sun shines in the evening down into the valley. And the images of these 3 mountains are exactly the same. There is a crystal there. The crystals form from the nutrients of the mountain. But the crystals of the 3 mountains are exactly the same. If you see the crystal, you see great beauty. But you don't see the differences in the mountains. Only the glass bead game players in Castalia, they are able to understand some of the differences in the mountains. And this is the story, this is the place of my... By this time, Mariana was really keen to get into the toy store. Daddy, can we go into the toy store? Yes, Mariana, let's go into the toy store. And there it was, the glass bead game right in front of us. What is the glass bead game? Well, you take a piece of timber, and you put holes in it, and you put runners. And so that you have this board. That's the board for the glass bead game. And the runners have different colors, red, blue, green, purple, so on. And then there's beads, a whole bunch of beads. There are red beads and green beads and blue beads and purple. And it's like a Chinese abacus, You take the beads and you put them on the runners. And the purple beads go on the purple runners, and the green beads go on the green runners, and the black beads. And then you play and you make configurations of beads. Let's do a couple of them here. So you can play, you might do black, and then red. And it's just putting the beads on, and then green, and then black again, And that gives you a little configuration of bead. So you played 4 moves of the glass bead game, and you got a little configuration. On the other hand, you might do black, and then red, and then green, and then black. And it's the same configuration, but if you think about it, we got there in 2 different ways, at least if my memory works. Right? So, and in fact, you can make some really good configurations. Let's reset and do another one. No, let's reset and do another one. How about if we do black, and then red, and then blue, and then black, and then purple, or green, or purple, yeah, green. Okay, now we're getting some interesting one. Blue, let's fill in a little there, and red, and black, right? Now that's a cool configuration, okay? Now how many different ways are there to get to that one? No, a few more, and you have to be a pretty good player to be able to find different ways of doing it. In fact, the way that we do it is we record the configurations of beads just by letters like this. You see, here's a configuration, a sample configuration that you might try to get to. Well, this is one way of getting to it. You put the red bead first, and then the green bead second, and then the blue bead third, and then the black bead fourth. And this is just recording, did the red bead first, and then I did the green bead second, and then the blue bead third, and then N is for noir, because black would be B, and that's no good. So N is for noir, which is the 4th bead, and then purple. And so this RGB in PRG is just coding this configuration and how you got there. Not just the configuration, but exactly which plays you did. So even if if you're traveling on the train to Castalia, you'll notice that there are all these kids sitting in the train doing RBG, PRNG. Well, that's what they're doing, is they're doing glass bead game configurations, It's like Sudoku, but in Castalia, you do glass bead game. But anyway, the amazing thing is here that if you take these scores, now let's go back a little bit, see the different ways of getting to this same configuration, but different ways of getting there. And you add them all up. Just put them all together in a big list. If you don't like thinking of it as plus, it's not really plus. It's just like a shopping list. These are all the different ways of getting to that configuration. Well, that thing is a canonical basis element. So that mysterious thing that was coming down from the quiver variety in Hermann Hesse's novel, that was the canonical basis element. We built one. And the way you build it is with this glass bead game. And there's a similar sort of a thing for the semi-canonical basis and for the MV basis. We don't understand them quite as well. But the canonical basis, you really build it by playing this glass bead game. And so there it was in the store, the glass bead game, that we could buy it. In fact, they had a whole bunch of different kinds of boards that you could look at. They had boards of all different sort of entry-level boards and medium-level boards and then advanced boards. And, some of these advanced boards, they're pretty pricey, They like to make some money off. I think there's a gold runner on this one, It's pretty... But... So then my daughter was looking at the back of the box, and there was the world champions, Kashiwara and Saito. Of course, Hermann says, that looks like Don Quixote and Sancho Panza. No literature here. These are the world champions for the glass bead game. They are the ones who know more configurations than anyone else. In fact, they discovered this special configurations. This is Kashiwara and Saito and Tanisaki, who's down below here. Tanisaki was a a guy who I thought, when I first met Kashiwara, I thought Tanisaki was there just his drinking buddy. It seemed like every time the talks ended, there was kind of Kashiwara and Tanisaki, and they went out drinking. I thought that was it. But then it turned out he was a really good Class B game player also. And these guys are really smart guys. And they discovered these configurations, which are called the Kashiwara configuration and the Saito configuration. So this is the Kashiwara configuration. This is really an amazing configuration because it is the place where the canonical basis and the semi-canonical basis differ. Usually, the crystals down in the valley, the crystals coming from these mountains are exactly the same. And it's really hard to find differences between the canonical basis and the semi-canonical basis and the MV basis. And Kashiwara found this configuration that picks up a difference. And we are not very good. I mean, that's a pretty complicated configuration. The number of ways of dropping the beads there is something like 81 million. And these double beads, there's something really weird going on with those. We don't really understand it very well. There's kind of a double beads. But of course, if the canonical basis and the semi-canonical basis are different at this place, then there's some difference, right? They're not the same, so there's got to be some difference. And this Saito configuration is the one that tells you the difference between the canonical basis and the semi-canonical basis at that place where they differ. This is actually the difference between the two. It's really an amazing piece of work. Of course, my daughter says to me, "Daddy, those are really cool. Can you make those too?" Well, I'm working on it. Okay. Anyway, that's the story of the glass bead game. Let's move on to, oh yes, so at this point, Grothendieck comes in, and Grothendieck says, "Do you know what you're looking at?" "Yes, the glass bead game." "Yes, but did you understand it? Did you understand the true meaning of it? This is the middle mountain in Hermann's novel. This is the quiver Hecke algebra. This glass bead game is just a little model for the quiver Hecke algebra. The quiver Hecke algebra bundles, they live in the higher category. They are the true meaning. And the character of the quiver Hecke algebra models is this measly canonical basis element. And the configuration of beads is just the tiniest distilled remnant of that measly canonical basis element. Did you understand the true meaning of this?" At that point, Maria says, "That's very beautiful, Alexander. Thank you for telling us." It was one of those times when you were very thankful to have Maria there, because Alexander was off on one of his diatribes. Anyway, Mariana was not interested in the diatribe. She had gone off to find a book. And there was a book, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Mirrors. Of course, Mariana, that's not really Harry Potter. It's Harry Coxeter, who was probably one of the greatest Canadian mathematicians of the last century. And in fact, Harry Coxeter didn't really like being called Harry. He was H.S.M. Coxeter. So, J.K. Rowling changed the name to make a good series of books, but, it's really H.S.M. Coxeter and the Chamber of Mirrors. Look, it's a stop sign. It's not a stop sign, Daddy. It's a hexagon. A hexagon is made out of 6 triangles. And this is your very simplest Coxeter complex. And the way you play this is it's really a game of mirrors. So if you take this red triangle here, you flip it across this, we flip it across this red line, then it moves over here, right? It's just a flip that goes like this. And so it moves over there. And then if you take that guy and you flip it across this blue line, it moves over here. And then if you take that guy and flip it across the red line, it moves over here. And again, we can code it with RBR, or B. And this is the other way. If you take this triangle, you flip it across the blue line, it goes over here. And then you take that one, and you flip it across the red line, it goes over here. And then you take that one, you flip it across the blue line, it goes over here. And you get the same place. RBR miraculously turns out to be BRB. And that's the Coxeter relation. That's the most basic relation. Of course, another very good way of looking at it is to do it with paths instead of with flips. I mean, if you flip all around, and it gets pretty complicated sometimes. But you can just walk, you color the walls of the triangles, and then if you walk across a red one, you imagine you're a ghost, and you just walk through a red wall, you call that red, and then you go blue, and then you go red. So going across this path gives you RBR, and if you go across the other path, you get BRB. So again, the same Coxeter relation, but this time, instead of doing it by flipping all across these mirrors, you can just do it by walking across the walls. And they're completely equivalent methods of getting to the same game. Of course, there's another way of doing this, which is if you do it on these pictures. This is another game that's in the toy store, is you've got your 3 strands, and you can switch the left 2 strands, or you can switch the right 2 strands. So there are 2 choices of how you do the switch, and either you can do the blue switch first, the first 2 strands, and then the second 2 strands, and then the first 2 strands. Or you can do the second 2 strands, and then the first 2 strands, and then, so this is left, left, and that's right, left, right. But if you look carefully, it's exactly the same configuration again. That leftmost edge goes across in front of all the others, out in front of all the others. And that rightmost edge goes behind all the others. And that happens in both scenarios. So you have a perfect, these braids, these strings, they know exactly about this Coxeter relation. They pick it up on the nose. It's just a miracle. In physics, it's called the quantum Yang-Baxter equation. Daddy, how come they have such fancy names in physics? Oh, I don't know. Don't tell Alexander. He'll go into a diatribe about how we're ruining the simplicity of the mathematics. Yeah, just don't tell him. Anyway, these Coxeter complexes, you are very familiar with these Coxeter complexes. You know, for example, the ordinary Coxeter complex is you, and there's a mirror, and there's another copy of you on the other side, you know. Right? That's typical. I'm sure you're familiar with it in your own bathroom, right? And then, of course, there's a fashion store Coxeter complex, which is when you're trying on suits. Is the cloth good? Let's see. And then you go up to the mirror, and if those mirrors are just right, you know it's a good store when the mirrors are just right, because you look in the mirror, and there's 6 copies of yourself, just perfectly aligned. And it just looks so good on the 2. Actually, if you're really keen on that, you can change the angle of the mirrors so that there are 8 copies of yourself. So, but of course, I never could get to 10 because the mirrors get so close together that you can't just quite make it happen. And then, of course, there's this very important, this is the first affine Coxeter complex, this one, where you've got one room, but that room, this is like if you go to the opera, and then afterwards you go down to see Maria Callas in the dressing room. And in the dressing room, there's a makeup table, and it's got a mirror, of course. And, of course, there's a makeup table on the other side where somebody else is putting their makeup, and there's a mirror over there. So there's a mirror on that wall, and there's a mirror on this wall. And then if you look, you see an infinite number of copies of yourself in the mirror because it's reflecting back and forth. And there's not just you, but there's a room over there, and there's a room over there, and there's a room, and it just goes on infinitely. And this is this infinite Coxeter complex. And then, of course, there's an even better version of the same thing, where you have a room that's triangular. And you go inside there, and it's like the triangular triangles that we had put together before to make a stop sign, to make a hexagon. But here, you go inside. This is actually in the Melbourne Museum. You really have to visit Melbourne. It's so cool. You know, you go to the Melbourne Museum, to the children's section, and there it is, an affine Coxeter complex. And you get down inside this thing, and you've got a perfect triangle with a mirror there, and a mirror there, and a mirror down here. And you look, and there's an infinite number of copies of yourself, all perfectly fanning out into a big tiling of the plane by triangles. If we go up, we can see this is exactly the same thing in a picture. There you are, sitting in that little room. And if you look in the mirrors, you see yourself way over there, just like in the dressing room. You see yourself 50 rooms down. Well, in this triangular thing, you see yourself over there, and over there, and over there, and just all over the place, in perfect symmetry, in perfect alignment. So, of course, a very good way to keep track of the game here is to cross the walls. Instead of thinking about flipping across all the rooms, you just cross the walls. Let's see. There you go. So that's a trajectory. So instead of thinking about yourself over here and looking at your image of yourself over there, you can just talk about how you would get there. Well, you cross a blue wall, and then you cross a red wall, and then you cross a green wall. And so this code in mathematics, when we're actually doing it, we just keep track of where we're looking by how would you get there, by this sequence of things of getting there. Of course, at that point, I went to go look and see what were the others doing. And there was Grothendieck with people, all kids all around him. He was doing an activity with triangles. He says, look, you take the white triangle. You take it. Everybody take their white triangle, yeah? Put it away from you, point away from you, put it down. And then you pick up 2 orange triangles, and you put those perfectly on the left side. And then you pick up 2 orange triangles, and you put those just right on the right side. You love it. Watch this. Now, take your tape, and you put nice long piece, and you tape the orange triangle to the white triangle. And then fold it down, and you tape the other orange triangle. Perfect. Now, you see, white triangle has 2 neighbors, 2 orange neighbors. Now we do other side. You tape, nice long thing, you put orange triangle next, then you fold it down, and you put the other orange triangle. Now, you see, white triangle has neighbors on each side, 2 flaps. Now we do the next one. Take your green triangles, 4 green triangles, and put them on the right, and 4 green triangles, you put them on the left. And then you take your tape, and you tape top green triangle on the left, fold it down, and then tape the second green triangle on the left. Now you fold down the whole orange one, and you tape the next green triangle on the left, and fold it down and tape the next green triangle on the left. Now you see we have very beautiful white, orange, green, many flaps. Now we do the other side. So we have taped the top one, green triangle to the orange, and then we tape the next one, green triangle, and then we fold down, and again to the orange, we have 2 green triangles attached. 2 green triangles, one here, and the second one is here. Now you see it's becoming very beautiful. Very beautiful. Every triangle has two neighbors. Two neighbors. White one has two orange neighbors. Orange one has two green neighbors. And you, in fact, make the whole thing. You make perfect hexagons. But every triangle has two neighbors. All two neighbors. This is the design of Jacques Tietz. You know, Jacques Tietz, he made perfect hexagons with many flaps. Many flaps. Jacques Tietz, he won a prize, you know. You know, Hermann, he also won a prize. But Jacques Tietz, he could not win Nobel Prize. There's no Nobel Prize for mathematics. But Jacques Tietz, he wins the Abel Prize. In mathematics, we have Abel Prize. And Jacques Tietz, he won the medal for this beautiful design. Jacques Tietz explained exactly how to connect the triangles to make hexagons. Every 6 triangles are connected to make a perfect hexagon, no matter which side you look from it, no matter how many flaps you put. Jacques Tietz has a formula for for how to connect to make perfect hexagons all the way around, no matter how many flaps you have. It's an amazing formula. At that point, I went over to see what my daughter was doing, Mariana. And there was Mariana with a video game kind of a thing. A big screen and a control stick. She was doing this kind of a thing. And even I, just looking at this screen, you know, was pretty, what is this thing? It turned out it was an affine Coxeter complex, so all those triangles all together, and every triangle had 5 flaps. And you could ski on this thing. You would use the control stick so that when you crossed from one triangle to the next, you would figure out which of the 5 flaps you would travel to next as you ski. And she would go down this way and cross onto the 3rd flap and then over to the 4th flap and crossing the triangles. It was as if she was skiing along. Yeah. Well, here's a baby one. This is a baby one where you ski, and there's only 2 flaps at each crossing. You can see that this guy has 2 choices of which way to go at each crossing. But Mariana's had 5 things, 5 of them. It was just like this, except that every time you cross an edge, there were 5 ways to go. And it was a big screen. And she was going along with all... It was pretty good the way that she could ski through. She had developed pretty quickly. But there were trees all over the place, which just was too much for me. I asked her, you know, what are all those trees? She said, well, Daddy, if you crash into a tree, then you have to start a new run. And when you crashed into a tree, the screen would turn up and show you the trajectory that you had followed as you skied on this mogul mountain. This is actually the mogul mountain. This Tietz building or mogul mountain that was the left mountain, or I guess for you, the right mountain in Hermann Hesse's novel. That's this thing that she was skiing on. And you would ski and it would show you, it would turn up and it would show you the trajectory that you had traveled on that thing. And it would give you, for each trajectory, it would give you a score for that trajectory. And at the end of it, you would add up all your total points. And that thing, for all the different ways of skiing down the mogul mountain, that's called the Weil character, or the Schur function. Mariana, why is it called Weil character? I don't know, Daddy. It's just a skiing game. Come on. Daddy, will you buy this for me for my birthday? Mariana, we're never going to get a screen that big. No, it says on the box. It works on your Apple TV. Come on. All right. So we played the skiing game for a while, and then I began to wonder, where are the others? Where are the others, Mariana? "Oh, they're in the back room with the antique toys." So I went in there to look at what they were doing, and they were all hunched over some kind of a old antique thing. Turned out it was a hurricane globe. You know, a snow globe, you shake it and then the snow falls on the scene there. This was a hurricane globe. It had the 3 mountains of Castalia, the pre-projective variety, the quiver variety, and the loop Grassmannian. And you would shake it and the hurricanes would form across the tops of the mountains. And then they would sort of run their course and you could see them. And then you would shake it again, and the hurricanes would reform. It was a beautiful thing. And at that point, Alexander started to explain the maths of this. It was, I had never seen him so calm. He says, you know, look at these storms. These storms, they're the sheaves. They're the vector bundles with connection. And this twisting, the twisting around of the storm, that's called monodromy in maths. Monodromy. And at the center of the storm is the Frobenius fixed point. Right at the center. And the winds travel from one mountain to the other. One of these is the characteristic variety, or the map to the cotangent bundle. And the winds travel to the other one, and that map is the exponential map. Or sometimes you talk about it the other way around. It's called tropicalization, because it happens in tropical storms that way. And everybody was looking at, mesmerized by this thing. And you could see that Frobenius fixed point, beautiful at the top of the hurricane. And so I asked him, I wonder who made that. You know, it's just so perfectly beautiful. It's got inlay and it's hand carved. And even the glass is old, beautiful hand-blown glass. So they turned up to the inscription. Read the inscription. It said, "The eye of the hurricane, the Frobenius fixed point, angefertigt von Professor Herr Dr. Ferdinand Georg Frobenius." At that point, there was a tug on my sleeve. "Daddy, can we go have ice cream now?" "Yes, Mariana, it's time to go have ice cream. Let's go, everyone will have ice cream. It's been a wonderful trip to the toy store."
Thank you very much, Arun. We're going to take some questions in just a moment. So we'll give Arun just a break. If you'd like to have a drink or anything, catch your breath. So if you have some questions there, if you could wave them around, and we've got some people who are going to come down and grab them from you on the aisles. We'll also be taking questions off Twitter in just a moment. Before we get on, I'll just mention that our talk next month for BrisScience, we're going to be partnering with Fresh Science, which is a fantastic program that's running for a couple of years now, which is going to feature 10 of our brightest new scientists. They are going to be competing to present their work to you in the time it takes for a sparkler to burn down. So they've got their spiel down to a very fine art, and there'll be obviously lots of opportunity for audience feedback to the time of sparkler. So come along to see some very bright sparks next month. Thank you, thank you. And that is on the 17th of August, back to our regular Monday night time slot. All right, have we got some more questions coming in there? Okay, I've got a couple that are collected already. So the first question, Arun, is what are you specifically working on at the moment? What's your next?
Oh, well, you just saw it. I mean, I really am researching this quiver variety, this pre-projective variety, and this loop Grassmannian, and really trying to understand the subtle differences between the canonical basis, the semi-canonical basis, and the MV basis. There are many, many mysteries that we don't know how to resolve in that. That's definitely what I'm working on.
Awesome. Okay, the second question we have here, why are physicists interested in the 3 mountains?
Oh, boy. Can I answer that? Let's see. So this is one of these moments where I sort of know the answer, but I know the answer in a language that I don't know how to quite say it. So these vector bundles with connection, as you move from one part of the storm to the next part of the storm, so as you twist around and you're moving around, that gives you a little equation for how the motion changes from one place to the next place to the next place. And that's a differential equation whose solution is called an instanton. So, or there's another version of it where they're called solitons. And these are real equations that describe how waves move and why they form sort of waves that go on forever, or why there are certain solutions to equations that appear all of a sudden and then disappear all of a sudden. So these instantons and solitons, they really are in the mechanics of the spaces that we were talking about. That space that we were skiing on is one of those spaces where the vector bundles can pick up these instantons and solitons in physics.
Okay, John asks, what is the next big unsolved problem?
The next... science doesn't work that way. There are so many fantastic, big, unsolved problems. Just amazing, amazing numbers of enticing, beautiful. I mean, we could take all the postgraduate students you could possibly give me and multiply it by 1,000, and there would still be so many problems to work on. You know, I have my unsolved problem of today, but, you know, tomorrow I'll have a different one that I'm working on. So many.
All right, unfortunately we're almost out of time and the food awaits, but the final question I have is from, I think, Jane, was where can we get the soundtrack to your presentation?
I don't know. The sound guys are back there and they own everything. Right. But certainly maybe we can put on the website the names of the pieces that I used, and then you can go to your local CD store or to iTunes and get them, because they are fantastic pieces of music, and so it's really worth learning the whole thing. I just played a tiny excerpt, but it's really worth learning the whole thing.
Fantastic. Well, look, I'm sure you're going to have lots more opportunity to chat to Arun as we go outside, but I think you'll agree that the students today at the Winter School, if they didn't come along tonight, definitely missed out on a fantastic and completely different view of mathematics to what you might normally have seen in school. Could you please join me in thanking Arun Ram?
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Wonderful.
Please join us outside and see you next month.